So I decided to start a fresh, brand new free-to-play account, just a clean slate to fully experience the game as a new player. The goal? To give an honest look at the current state of Wuthering Waves. The good, the bad, and everything in between. We're talking about everything in order of experience, starting from the very beginning. Right out the gate, there are some glaring issues when you're first introduced to the region of Huanglong. Now, because it's the very first region, it needs to leave a strong first impression, and for the most part, it does. But it does have its upsides and downsides. The opening 5 to 20 minutes are awesome. You're poured in with polished cutscenes, intriguing world building, and a smooth onboarding experience that introduces the game's mechanics at a comfortable pace. That's exactly what you want for a first time player. But after that strong start, things begin to slow down a lot. It's clear they want to ease players into the game's many systems. While that's understandable, the pacing of the first few chapters suffers for it. The first 4 chapters take about an hour to complete, and during that time the story begins to drag. It feels like it's holding back, and for new players that might be enough to lose interest before they even see the game's real potential. So, I want to bring up some things that were bad and how they could fix it. First, flat voice lines. Some of the voice acting early on feels emotionally flat, especially from characters like Shixia, Yang Yang, and even the Rover. It's not game breaking, but it definitely breaks immersion during what should be key emotional moments. For fix, re-record those lines with better emotional direction. It's a relatively small change that could add a lot more life to these characters. Second, pacing issues in the first 4 chapters. The early story is a slow burn, and not the good kind. While it's meant to introduce Wuthering Waves' many systems, all it ends up doing is killing the momentum. I think these chapters could really benefit from a rewrite. There's many ways they could do this, by tightening up the dialogue, raising the stakes earlier, giving players a reason to care about the conflict sooner. It really doesn't have to be a lore dump, just something that grabs attention and keeps it. Third, lack of voice dialogue and key moments. Rover speaks quite a bit, which is great, but there's still too many moments where you're just selecting dialogue options and getting unvoiced responses in return. It's jarring, especially in emotionally charged scenes. Even short voice lines, sighs, quick reactions, or minimal responses would make the world feel more alive and immersive. These 3 issues, flat delivery, slow pacing, and unvoiced lines, all stack on top of each other, and when it comes to first impressions, that matters a lot. Fixing them wouldn't just improve the story experience, it would directly impact new player retention. Players are more likely to stick around if the game hooks them early. Now, most of these negatives are concentrated in the first 4 chapters, because once you get past that, the game picks up fast. When characters like Scar and Camellia enter the picture, the tone shifts completely. There's more personality, more tension, and more narrative intrigue. You start to feel the story expanding, like there's a bigger world with real problems just beyond the horizon. The pacing improves, the character voicing is better, and there's a clear sense of build up towards something meaningful, a proper climax, instead of doing another tutorial. It's actually a bit frustrating in hindsight, because it proves the devs can deliver impactful, memorable moments. They just need to bring that same energy into the earlier chapters, because if the first few hours match the quality of these later acts, I think Wuthering Waves would hook far more players from the start. Now, after addressing the biggest issues for newcoming players, let's have a look at the exploration. Exploration is honestly the best part of Wuthering Waves, and for a lot of players, it keeps them coming back. But here's the catch, not everyone is going to have the same experience. If you didn't already know, it's possible to get early access to rinacita, and with it comes a massive boost to exploration quality of life. So much so that it completely changes how you experience the game. So let's talk about what makes rinacita exploration so special. First off, you can fly. Yeah, you heard that right. Just the ability to take off and glide across the map is enough to make the open world lovers fall in love. But that's not all. There's also the boat system, which allows you to travel across water by accessing boats at their respective ports. The best part? It's not some limited time feature. It's available with unlimited duration, making water traversal feel smooth and seamless. But honestly, the real game changer, the one feature that players love the most, is the exploration legend. This tool allows you to actively track objectives on the map and head directly to the location. Whether it's collectibles, chests, or puzzles, it gives players a reliable way to 100% the map without aimless wandering or guesswork. It turns exploration into something satisfying and efficient rather than overwhelming or tedious. Keep in mind, the only thing it doesn't track for you is the region's caskets, but you'll be able to find them in no time by flying around. It's also worth noting there are hidden chests that can't be tracked but are extremely easy to find. After wrapping up your time in rinacita, you'll eventually find yourself backtracking to Huanglong, going to areas like Mount Firminat and the Black Shores, and this is where some real friction starts to show, especially for newer players. Right out the gate, you'll notice something jarring. You can't use the flying system or the boats anymore, and honestly, that's a huge downside. If you've already experienced rinacita, It's like the game gave you a Ferrari, then turned around and said, sorry, you're not allowed to drive here. That's how dramatic the downgrade feels, especially when Honglong's terrain is filled with vertical cliffs, wide gaps, and large zones that make traversal a slog by comparison. Now, this isn't some complex, unfixable issue. In fact, there's a really simple solution. Kuro should add the flying permit as a reward in the Pioneer Association level up track. This would give players a sense of progression and unlock a traversal feature they've already experienced, making it feel earned rather than taken away. As for the boats, not as big of a deal since they're more situational, but it would be a nice touch if fishing content were expanded to other regions, making boats feel relevant and natural across the entire world, not just in Rinacita. The last major difference between Rinacita and the earlier zones comes down to something deceptively simple: objective tracking. In Rinacita, you're able to track all exploration objectives like chest spots, puzzles, and others alike. It gives players a clear sense of progress and direction, and it's one of the biggest reasons why exploring in Rinacita feels so smooth and satisfying. But here's the problem: that system isn't consistent across the rest of the game. In the Black Shores, you can track some objectives, but not all of them. In Huanglong and Mount Firminat, you can't track anything. For players trying to 100% the region, this becomes a major pain point. It's not uncommon to get stuck looking for one or two lost puzzles or chests, wandering in circles with no clue where to go. At that point, most people just alt-tab to a third-party map, and that completely breaks immersion. The solution here is simple: bring Rinacita's tracking system to the rest of the game. Give players the same ability to track content across all regions, especially the starting zone. It's not about making things easier, it's about respecting players' time and making exploration feel rewarding instead of frustrating. This small change alone would drastically improve the quality of life for completionists and casual players alike. Before we move on, there's some general issues and quality of life changes that I want to bring up that tie into exploration. First, players should be given the option to choose what music that plays, both during exploration and in combat. Wuthering Waves is a phenomenal soundtrack, but right now you're stuck with whatever the game assigns you based on the area or situation. As in-games toggle or select their own music, similar to how other games let you set battle themes or ambient tracks, would add a personal touch and keep things from getting repetitive. It's a simple quality of life feature that would only enhance the experience. Second, climbing is a core part of traversal, so when it doesn't behave as expected, it breaks immersion. A clear example of this is when in the sewers beneath Septimont there are walls that look climbable, same texture, same height, but for some reason the game doesn't let you grab onto them. It's inconsistent and confusing. This might seem minor, but it directly undermines the player's sense of freedom. When you're being trained to believe if it looks climbable, it probably is, suddenly hitting invisible restrictions feels jarring and frustrating, especially in a game that otherwise encourages freeform movement and exploration. If the goal is to make the world feel seamless and reactive, then visual and mechanical consistency is essential. Players should always feel empowered to experiment, not second guess whether the environment will say no. The core issue here is consistency. Once a player experiences the freedom of Rinacita, stripping that away then returning to earlier zones just feels punishing, especially when it affects how enjoyable exploration is meant to be. Now finally, once you've finished the story and exploring, you would have started dipping your toes into the end game. Right out the gate, farming materials for your weapons and characters in Wuthering Waves feels smooth and accessible. Most of the required resources are easy to find or craft, with the only real limitation being stamina, which is expected in gacha style games. But as the character roster continues to grow, that early momentum starts to fall apart, and one of the biggest culprits is the weekly boss drop limit. Currently, you can only receive rewards from 3 weekly bosses per week, and that's where the game starts to feel like a soft lock, especially for free-to-play or returning players trying to catch up. This limit makes it extremely difficult to build multiple characters in a timely manner. You're forced to prioritize just a handful of units, so it ends up being frustrating to have materials, resonator upgrades, and weapons ready only to be blocked by a simple weekly gate. There are a few ways this could be improved. Increase the weekly boss cap from 3 to 5 or more. Let all weekly bosses be farmable whenever, but make the first 3 drops cheaper in stamina or more rewarding, or increase the amount of weekly boss materials you receive in general. The current system slows down character progression unnecessarily, and in a game that encourages team building and experimentation, it feels counterintuitive. This is one of those systems that could scale well with time, but only if Kuro is proactively adjusting it as the roster grows. Outside of the weekly boss bottleneck, farming materials in Wuthering Waves generally feels good. Weapon match, upgrade resources, and character session items are all relatively accessible, assuming you manage your stamina well. But let's not forget about the echo farming, the heart of Wu's gearing system. At a glance, the system is pretty standard for gacha RPGs. You've got your tacit builds, each tied to 2 specific echo sets. For problem, you're not guaranteed which set you will drop, and even if the right one does, main stat RNG is still in play. To Wilbur's credit, they made a decent effort to keep it accessible. You can kill overworld echoes for their respective sets, which is nice for players who want to farm casually or efficiently without spending stamina. Also, it's worth noting the Elusive Realm also rewards echoes, giving players another solid alternative to Tacet Fields. But this is where it all starts to fall apart. Players who don't want to be echo pickers are stuck with the same issue. Even if they are farming the right Tacet Field, they aren't guaranteed the set they want. My suggestion, let players select the echo set they want to farm within Tacet Fields and the Elusive Realm. Keep the max stat RNG, that's fine, as a part of the grind, but give players the ability to at least lock in which set they're targeting. This doesn't remove the grind, it just makes it feel more fair and less punishing. Right now, echo farming is tolerable, but with a bit more control and quality of life, it could become one of the most satisfying gearing systems in any gacha game. So now you've done the grind, you've leveled your characters and maxed out your weapons and farmed your echo sets. Now comes the final step, leveling those echoes. And oh boy, this is where the real pain begins. It's not uncommon for players to spend a week, a month or even longer trying to roll the substats they want. That's just the nature of RNG and gacha systems. And unfortunately, Wilbur follows the same pattern we've seen in other gacha games. It's frustrating, it's tedious, and it feels like your progress is held hostage by pure luck. But what really makes this process feel worse than it needs to be is the tuner system. Let's be real, you either have tuners or you don't, and whether or not you have them more often or not comes down to luck. There's no consistent or reliable way to farm large quantities of them unless you're constantly grinding. This becomes a huge problem because tuners are essential for echo progression, especially once you're trying to roll high-end substats on echoes. Without them, you're stuck hoarding echoes or wasting valuable echo XP. So here's my take. Tuners should either be removed entirely, replaced with a more streamlined upgrade system, or they should be rewarded far more generously, especially when farming Tacet Fields for main source of echoes. Right now, the system punishes unlucky players while slowing down progression for everyone, and in a game where theory crafting and team flexibility are meant to shine, this bottleneck creates unnecessary friction. But even if you manage to push past the frustrations of the tuner system, you're not in the clear just yet, because the next issue waiting for you is the lack of echo experience. Just like tuners, echo XP relies heavily on RNG. You either get lucky and stockpile some, or you're stuck scraping by trying to level echoes while juggling limited resources. And because these materials are often behind a stamina wall, it becomes yet another drag on progression. But unlike tuners, the fix here is really straightforward. All you need to do is let's convert unwanted echoes into experience, because it's a win-win. Players get a grindable, free-to-play method to build their gear. It gives value to duplicate or unusable echoes instead of them just rotting in their inventory. It smooths out the progression curve without handing out free stats. This kind of system would fit naturally in Wilbur's existing framework. You're still grinding, but at least the grind has purpose, even when the drops aren't perfect. Finally, once you've gotten past the tuners and echo experience bottleneck, you run into the last hurdle, getting the substats you actually need. Now I won't harp on this too much since Kuro has already implemented a main stat changer, which was a great addition, but since this mechanic already exists, the next logical step would be to let us modify substats as well, preferably for grindable events or endgame, not a premium paywall. Being able to selectively reroll or swap substats would massively reduce frustrations and give players a real sense of control over their builds, rather than feeling like you're endlessly rolling the dice. It doesn't have to kill the grind, it just needs to feel fair. Finally, once you've reached the end game and have 2 to 3 teams built, you have a couple options to have a crack at. First, Tower of Adversity, a structured set of floors with increasing difficulty, good for testing your team builds and rotations, but unfortunately it does become repetitive and stale after a while. It's also worth noting they did end up changing how often the cycle resets from 2 to 4 weeks, but didn't end up changing the shop prices or the rewards you get for clearing the towers. Second, Whimpering Waste. Honestly, a pretty fun game mode that makes more niche units extremely valuable. This mode rewards good grouping and fast clearing, but becomes extremely repetitive and eventually feels like a mob farm. Third, Elusive Realm. Probably the most replayable option right now. The roguelike option with modifiers and buffs that help each run. It's fun for a while, but eventually you'll start to see patterns repeat. Unfortunately, we did have a better version of this that was more fun, and the community is already asking for it back, as the current game mode is very repetitive. Fourth, Hologram Bosses. It gives you a chance to flex your skills and builds. This is probably the hardest content we have in the game so far, as it adds to the boss fight mechanics and has increasing difficulty level. The only downside is that it's a one-time clear. Overall, the current endgame content is solid, but it's missing one key thing: a competitive PvE mode that players want to repeat. And what's the best way to do that, of course? Well, I think they should add boss fights with a clear time leaderboard. But wouldn't ways just dominate this game mode? Well, not if it's done right. Here's a way it could work to make it more fair and balanced for all players involved. To level the playing field, Kuro could disable character and weapon dupes. Or better yet, let everyone pick from a set roster of pre-built characters with locked echo sets. This does two things. It ensures true mechanical skill and strategy decide the outcome, while letting players test out characters that they don't own and real high-stakes content. But you need to make sure everyone can obtain the rewards, of course, not just the best players. There's a simple fix for this. What you need to do is set clear time breakpoints. If you meet the benchmark, you get the rewards. You can still have higher clear time breakpoints for more rewards or titles so everyone has the reason to play. This kind of content would create a healthy sense of competition, let players experiment with new characters and team comps, and reward skill instead of spending. Most importantly, it will give players a reason to log in outside of the daily system. Kuro already nailed the combat system, now they just need to give us a playground to show it off. Guess what, they already have a system in place to build it. It's called the Frontier Trials. This is basically a repeatable, limited game mode event that allows you to add modifiers to the boss to make it more challenging. Basically, all they need to do is bring it back permanently and improve from it. Overall, the new player experience is great, but there are definitely some drawbacks that could turn people away. The good news is, every issue has a solution. Whether those changes happen or not depends on how vocal we, the players, are. So if you agree with anything I said, feel free to use this video as feedback in any surveys or forums. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like, drop a comment, and don't forget to subscribe with the notifications on. And as always, take care and have a good one.